Hello, all you fishies out there. Welcome back to part 2 of the Blitz sculpture video episode 2, or part 2 of the Blitzo sculpture. We are back at it again, guys, working on this guy. Hopefully the video isn't horrible quality. It looks a little fuzzy on my end, but that could just be me. So yep, we're starting back off where we were. We baked that figure, and, you can bake the figure after a lot of the steps to, keep it in place. So we're just doing, I added a little extra there. You can see I'm adding a little extra piece just to show where his shirt is, and I didn't worry about doing the whole back because that gets covered up by his, coat. So I just did the front so it looked like, there's that little shirt lip or whatever. I ended up kind of smushing it down a little bit there. I probably could have left it out more, but things happened. It's okay. It turned out fine in the end. So, I'm just scraping off those extra bits and smoothing it out. I do a lot of stuff by hand again. I do have the tools, but I usually end up doing stuff by hand. And you can see the wood plaque got a little crispy because I was switching between using a conventional oven and a toaster oven. So sometimes I was like, toaster oven is easier, quicker. I don't feel like, dealing with the oven. So when I could lay the figure down, I was able to use the toaster oven. But of course, you have to be careful because it can burn the wood. It gets a little crispy, but thankfully it's like paint. You can just paint over it, and you won't even notice. Just make sure to never leave your toaster oven, or so no fires. Just be careful. Never leave an oven or any kind of baking or cooking left undone. Okay, so what I'm doing right now is I had used and I talked about it in the last video, I used the oven bake clay adhesive or whatever to glue the legs in originally so it wouldn't move too much and it would stay in place, but I ended up taking that out because I decided to make the feet and then just jam the feet on. So you can see now we're making the feet. I just made like a little cylinder and started shaping it, and it's going super fast mode. Not super fast. I know some of the videos that I've made were a lot faster, and now that I'm breaking it into parts, I'm not making it as fast. So this is like, times 400 or times 500 versus like times 800 or something crazy. Just so that way, I don't have to make the video so short. I can just break it into parts so you guys can see. It's quicker, but you can see the details and how I do it. So I'm just shaping it around. You might do feet differently. I know Ace of Clay does his feet sometimes a little different, where he'll, just his process. He might shape the feet on there or whatever. But it was like, okay, I'm making this boot. I got to figure this out, how I'm doing this. So I decided to just shape the boot and then just jam it on the leg. So that's what I did. And it worked out okay. So we got that. That was good. So that's a thing. That it worked out well for me. Still shaping out that foot. I'm using my box cutter. Please be careful if you do use box cutters or X-Acto knives or scalpels. Just be careful. I'm not always the safest person, so just watch out for your fingers. You can cut your hands if you're not careful. If you're young, make sure you have an adult around. But just caution. At any age, be cautious. Don't cut your fingers. We don't want that. So yeah, obviously you can see I just jammed it on there. You can also like cut it and then smooth, cut the back of it, like wrap it around and then reseal it. But I decided to just jam it in there. That's just, what I do sometimes. And then, of course, I made the boots a little, I should have, moved it up further or made the pant legs, I can't even speak sometimes. the pant legs should have been a little shorter so I could get the boot higher so the wire would come down more, because my main issue was I made the wire long enough to go in the wood base, and then obviously I added the boots, so it made the figure taller, which I should have moved the boots upward more, but that didn't work out too well. So, of course, the figure became taller and I had less wire, so he kept falling over. So later on, I bake him in the oven, and he kept falling over to the point where the boot snapped. Like the little front part of the boot snapped off. You won't get to see that. I hid it, so you can't see my failure. So I had to fix that part. That was off camera. So I had to super glue that part back on and then fix it. So yeah, it's like, oh, look at those boots. They look so nice, so cool. But in reality, behind the scenes, we didn't really think too great about the wire situation, and we snapped one of the boots. But it's okay, because it's, cosplay and Sculpey original, so it was like easy to just, it broke off in a one clean piece, and I just super glued it back and then painted it. You couldn't even tell afterwards because the paint really hides it. And then I did the extra nice like lighting or shading and yada yada in the painting. You'll see it later, and I'll talk to you guys about it later too. So yeah, we're just quickening up. We're just fixing up those boots to make them nice. A lot of this is like, okay, it's not perfect at first, but as you can see, like the upper body looks pretty smooth at that point. I bake it after the fact. So right now, once you're done with the boots, you can bake them again. And you can pretty much bake it after each step. It will, burn your wood a little bit, but that's not the end of the world. But if you want to make sure it's, stable and whatnot, you can just keep baking it each time so it hardens up. Because I do end up here gluing the boots with more of the oven bake adhesive, but of course it still broke because it fell over, and that cosplay is very wobbly and movable, so of course it moved, and it like I think I just knocked it over, and those wires weren't long enough. I probably could have thrown some super glue in there, and you see, I used the oven bake clay adhesive to try to glue it on there. Probably could have used some super glue on like where the wires were, and then use some oven bake clay adhesive. But I was like, I don't really know if super glue can go in the oven or not. I feel like it would be fine because it would be already dry. It would be attaching it to the wood, and it would be covered by everything else. So I feel like that would have been okay. If you run into this problem if you decide to make Blitzo for your own or any other sculptures where you have this problem, you probably could super glue it. So I didn't show you, I just made like a blob for the arm, and I tried to like sculpt out the fingers individually, which you could see it looked derpy. Because I was trying to make the figures, or the fingers, not the figures, the fingers, it looked derpy. So I was like, okay, screw it. I'm just going to stick this thing here and just reshape it. So you see me, I'm just shaping the hands. And of course the wire poked out a little bit. And then I'm kind of squishing it a little flatter, because he's got that it's like an oval shape, and then it's a little flat for the fingers. There's a little bit of the moving camera. We're adjusting more, and yep, just trying to flatten that, make it look nice and flat and good. So yep, now it's all nice looking. It's good. And then I will bring out my paintbrush, and I use the paintbrush to poke little holes in the figure. Okay, well, now I'm showing you the other one. So I'm rolling it. It's just like, yep, trying to make sure they're about the same size. I think I measure it with a ruler at one point, so you'll see that. eyeball it at this point. I think it was a little bit bigger, so I had to fix it up a little bit. So, yep, there's this squishy. Squish, 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 trying to smooth it out by hand. But, yes, again, after you bake it, you can sand a lot of this, like Sculpey, Cosplay. You can sand all of that stuff. As long as you're careful, you know, you don't break it. I did have a couple breaks, but it was like, there was a teeny little crack in the arm because I kept moving the arm. Again, you see I adjusted the arm and turned it a little bit. So we got a couple bits of cracking. I'm measuring it to make sure they're about the same size or length. So, you know, just making sure that looks good, making sure they look like, you know, the same, like the pictures I was referencing, because of course I had the picture on my computer when I was looking at it. Behind the scenes funnies, I always watch other YouTube videos or other YouTubers while I'm working on my stuff, and you can see I shortened it up a little bit more because it was a little too long, and that's okay. So we're making that nice, and I did my best, but anytime you bake it, you can sand it afterwards and get out all those extra bumps and stuff. I don't know how, like Ace of Clay, how he makes his figures so smooth and nice and neat. He might do sanding too. I'm gonna assume that. I'm gonna assume it's just, you know, show magic, as they say. It's behind the scenes magic where it's like, oh, everything looks perfect, but behind the scenes, it's like this whole process. So the whole process is, after I make and bake the pieces, I go back and I sand it over with a couple different gradients of sandpaper. So like a little thicker than the thinner and the finer. And now I attempted to put on that finger and I was like, okay, I need to do something better. So that's where I'm bringing in the paintbrush. I made the holes. Then I got wire so I could stick on the fingers just to make sure they didn't fall off. Because I knew, I was like, I need to get some wires here for these fingers and do something else just in case. So, yep, poking all the holes for the fingers. And then eventually we'll get to the wire. It'll come out. We'll see it. I'm poking all the holes right now. Just thinking ahead this time. Or, I mean, a lot of it, I just come up with it as I go. So it's just kind of like, oh, bam, there we go. So the finger got stuck in there. I don't know if I put a wire in that one yet. Maybe I did. Nope. Oh, we're moving around. Nope. Yep. Nope. No wire yet. You're going to see it eventually. It'll come up. Oh, there it goes. There's my little clips. Okay, now I stuck it on the wire. Because just in case, I don't trust, like, yeah, you have the adhesive and stuff, but it's like, man, I don't trust any of that stuff. You're going to end up, you know, all it needs to do is just fall over and snap off. Although, it does stick really well together. It has fallen over and it survived. The only thing that broke was that shoe. The boot snapped in half, but everything else was great and stable, and I was pretty impressed. But that wire is just there to reinforce those fingers so you can see all the wires. And then I'm making all the fingers off screen because they're pretty easy. It's just a little cone shape that you're rolling in your fingers. And you can pretty much just adjust it once you get on the wire. So, yep. Once it's on the wire, then I adjust it. I guess I didn't have that thumb wire until now. I didn't realize that. Took me a while, apparently. And then I think I just kept readjusting the thumb to make sure it was the right size. Although one of the pointer fingers, I don't know if it's that one or not. It might be that pointer finger or the other side of the hand, but I made one of the pointer fingers a lot longer than the middle finger. I think it is that pointer finger. You see how long it is? I did not fix that. So if you see the figure in the future and stuff like that, there's another thing behind the scenes. That pointer finger is a lot longer than the middle finger. So my anatomy was off, but I I don't know why I didn't bother to fix it. I was just lazy, I think. I was like, I don't feel like it. So I could have fixed it. I thought about it. I thought about it several times. We're just in fixing yada yada. I did not. And then I tried to fix it with the little tool. I tried to stick it in there, but I was like, I'm not worried about it. It's stuck on there with metal. I'm just going to brush it with the clay adhesive later on, and it'll be perfectly fine. And of course, my little turntable, I'm hitting stuff, so that's going to be a noise. I'm sorry for that ahead of time. Yeah, that turntable, I love turntables, but the turntable kept moving because my table is not perfectly flat. I work on top of, as you can see, I work with those little cutting mats. So I have a big cutting mat that I can work on top of. That's the pink one. You can see it in the corner. And it is wrinkled. I got it from someone else. So it's not entirely flat. And they do get wrinkled after a while. They're like very sensitive to heat. And if you don't keep them on a flat surface and stuff, like they can get bent and stuff. So they're like heat sensitive, flat sensitive. So it's like you have to just keep them flat all the time. Otherwise they bend. Like I bought the one in the back behind that. I bought that one, the smaller one, and it's bent, unfortunately, just because they bend, which is just really annoying. They're good to have. I love them, but it's like, if you really want them to stay flat, you're going to have to buy multiples, unfortunately. Otherwise, they're going to keep bending, and you'll just have to keep replacing it. And we're done. We got the fingers in there. I was talking on because there's so many fingers, but, I wanted to let you guys see it. Again, the movie magic, you can't tell right now from the angle that pointer finger is longer, but it is. And now I'm brushing on that oven bake clay adhesive all over it just to make sure everything's glued together, and that easily gets covered with paint later on, so you can't even tell it's there. It's really, I love the oven bake clay adhesive. Asa Clay gave me ideas for all that stuff. So again, his link will be in the description. I almost always shout him out in like every video just because he's very inspiring. He helped motivate me to start making clay figures again and sculpting, and he's helped keep me motivated to work on this stuff. And he's also given me tons of tips and tricks and stuff like that. And, good ideas for how to do a lot of this stuff. Because, man, I did not know about all these different cool tools and stuff. Like, I learned about, I don't even know how I discovered cosplay. I think I discovered it from, like an ad just popped up. You talk about your phone listening to you. I think it was just an ad that popped up on my phone, and they're like, cosplay, Kickstarter, yada yada. So I ended up buying a bunch of cosplay, and we had a pointed head for Blitzo. I decided to shove in the head video. I wasn't originally, but I was like, okay, I'm going to shove in that head segment. So he had a pointed head at first because I was just trying to figure out what shape head I wanted. So now we're smoothing that, making that head. The head part, okay, so this end part isn't like the most beautiful, well-filmed bit, because I was just like, okay, I'm trying to figure out how to get this. Because, of course, when you're making something that's two-dimensional into three-dimensional, it is a lot of guesswork. So I was like, okay, I know he has kind of a larger head in the back, a little like thinner in the front, and then I kind of make that mouth shape he has, and I end up, painting his face on, because I was like, I'm not doing any kind of 3D face for him. Like, I don't want to do any eyes, like dip in for eyes or anything. I was like, I want to keep that very like to Vivzipop's design, and just very much, this is the character, like two-dimensional face. Just, I didn't want it to end up turning out, not great, or not how I liked it, or not like the character. Of course, in the end, it's like, man, 2-dimensional, and 3-dimensional is very difficult as far as the face goes. It looks real good from a profile, but up front it's like, okay, that's okay, but at the same time it's like, this is annoying. Now we're doing the horns. And the horns are definitely not the most perfect part of the sculpture. Once they're painted, it looks better. And again, with the horns, it's like, you know, I kind of do my best to sand them down afterwards because, you know, I'm just like, okay, I'm going to shove the wire in there. And of course, the wires weren't the right size exactly, and the horns are a little slightly different. But of course, 2-dimensional drawing, you know, the reference photos, there's always like a slight difference. So like I did a couple derps where it's like the design, there are a couple mess ups. They're really hard to notice, especially like I'll show you in the future when we put on the outfit where you'll see some of the mess ups, because of course I'm working with so many photos, and a lot of the reference photos online for this character are not great. A lot of the Vivzipop characters, not all the reference photos are really good quality, or they're not great angles or this and that. So it's difficult to get them to look exact or things to be perfect, and it's like, oh shiz, after the fact you look at it and you're like, dang it, I messed up on that, but I can't fix it now. So the horns, I believe, you know, I did my best to smooth the horns out, and I think I sanded them a little bit later on, but I think I did a lot of the smoothing manually. I can't even recall, but I think I did a little bit of sanding and a little bit of fixing up because the horns were a little bumpy. But I mean, once you get them painted, you can't even tell at that point. So, you know, and I did not say to like and subscribe at the beginning of the video because sometimes I remember, sometimes I don't. So we're nearing the end of the video, so I want to remind you guys, please like and subscribe if you like this. This is the part 2 of the Blitz sculpture. I will link part 1 in the description, and this will be linked in part 1 of the video before it. So those will be linked, and then I'll have a link that says coming soon to, or it'll be the next link for part 3. It'll be a coming soon, and then it'll be a link once I get the third part out, and I'm going to try to get that third part out done by the end of this week. I was gonna get this part done last week, but I had my my birthday, or my creation day as I like to call it, so it was like, okay, that was kind of taking up my weekend. And then, you know, I tried to originally make this video and edit it, but I'm waiting to get a new laptop. I'm going to be getting it, but I have to wait for my money to clear. So I think I can't buy it until like Tuesday. So that'll be a thing. So, you know, I'll have better editing in the future. So well, gosh, it froze, and then I had to delete it and turn it off and yada yada. So yeah, we're just fixing up those horns a little bit more in this part. So it's just fixing it up. And yep, that's pretty much it. That's the end. You'll get to see the rest in the next video. I think that should be the end of sculpting Blitzo as a figure. And you'll get to see the tail and the coat and this and that. So make sure you guys remember, like and subscribe. Hit the bell for the notifications. Wait for that next part. Should be out at the end of the week. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you stay mad. And we'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye. Stay mad. Bleh. Yeah, that thing. Doo-doo-doo. Are we done? Nope.